AITA for saying no when my parents demanded I give them part of my paycheck after years of unpaid chores and babysitting. After that, I stopped fulfilling my parental duties. I, 19 male, recently got my first real job after high school. It is nothing fancy, a retail position at a local store, but it pays decently, has steady hours, and honestly, it feels really good to finally have some financial independence. For the first time in my life, I can buy things without feeling guilty or needing to explain why I want them. I thought this would be the start of something new, a way for me to finally carve out my own life. But instead, it turned into yet another battleground with my parents. Ever since I can remember, I have been the free babysitter, housekeeper, personal assistant, basically whatever unpaid role my parents needed at the time. They have 4 younger kids, all under the age of 12, with the youngest just turning 3 last month. Both of my parents work full-time, long hours too, and somehow the responsibility of raising my siblings seemed to naturally fall onto me. It was not even a slow transition, it just became my life. I was the one picking them up from daycare when I was barely old enough to drive, the one making dinner when I still needed a stool to reach the stove, the one helping with homework, breaking up fights, changing diapers, cleaning up messes that never seemed to end. And it was never framed like I was doing something exceptional. It was always just, this is what family does. No allowance. No thank yous. Not even a, hey, we appreciate you. It was simply expected, and the rare few times I did ask about some kind of reward or even just a little recognition, I was met with lectures about how grateful I should be to have a family at all, how important it is to contribute, how selfish it would be to expect payment for what is my duty. Meanwhile, most of my friends got to be normal teenagers. They had part-time jobs, they went to football games, they went out on weekends, they hung out at the mall, they had sleepovers. I was always the one who had to text last minute, sorry, I cannot come. Parents need me to babysit. I missed out on so many things that I still think about sometimes when I am lying in bed, wondering what it would have been like to just live. Fast forward to a few weeks ago, when I got my first paycheck. It was not a huge amount, but to me, it felt like a trophy, a symbol that I was stepping into adulthood on my own terms. I deposited it into my bank account, feeling proud and excited. That night, my parents sat me down at the kitchen table. At first, I thought maybe they were going to congratulate me. Maybe they wanted to take a picture or something cheesy like that. But no. They told me, very seriously, that they expected me to hand over half of my paycheck to help the family. Not asked. Not suggested. Expected. I remember sitting there stunned for a second, wondering if I had heard them wrong. I asked why, trying to keep my voice calm, and they said that now that I was earning money, it was time for me to contribute financially, just like they had done for their parents when they were my age. They talked about how expensive it is to run a household, how I was still living under their roof, eating their food, using their utilities, and how it was only fair that I help cover those costs now. I tried to stay respectful, but I could feel the anger bubbling up. I told them no. I pointed out, as calmly as I could, that I had already spent most of my teen years sacrificing my free time, my social life, my entire adolescence, to help raise their kids for free. I reminded them that while my friends were getting to be kids, I was at home changing diapers and folding laundry and making sure the toddlers got fed before they started screaming. I said that if anything, they owed me. They did not like that. They got defensive immediately. They said that doing chores and helping out was part of being a family member, that what I did was not special, that everyone is expected to contribute in a family. They said that this was not about chores anymore, this was about financial responsibility and being an adult. That conversation left a bad taste in my mouth. Worse than that, it left me feeling hollow. Because it made it crystal clear to me that in their eyes, all the time and effort and sacrifices I had made over the years meant absolutely nothing. They saw me as a tool, a resource to be exploited, not a son to be cherished or supported. After that, I made a decision. I stopped. Completely. I stopped picking up the kids from daycare when they got stuck late at work. I stopped cooking dinner. I stopped cleaning up the tornado of toys and clothes and dishes that seemed to appear in every room. I stopped doing laundry, except for my own. If they needed someone to babysit, I said no. If they left a list of chores for me before heading to work, I ignored it. It was not out of spite. It was about setting boundaries. If they saw me as a financial contributor, then I would act like a tenant, not a third parent. If they wanted money for my contributions, then they could actually pay for my time, or do it themselves. The first few days, they thought I was just being lazy. They made passive-aggressive comments about the dirty dishes piling up, about the kids whining for attention, about the mess. I ignored it. After about a week, they confronted me again, asking why I was suddenly refusing to help. I told them, plain and simple, that if my labor was not valued unless it was accompanied by a paycheck, then I was no longer offering it for free. That I would take care of myself, keep my own space clean, buy my own food if necessary, but I would not be the live-in nanny anymore. They accused me of being selfish, ungrateful, immature. They said that family means helping each other, not keeping score. Funny how keeping score only became a problem when I started refusing to let them keep all the points. Now, things are tense at home. They are trying to juggle everything themselves, and it is clearly not easy. I hear them arguing more. The younger kids are crankier because they are not getting as much attention. Dinner is often just frozen pizza or fast food now. Laundry piles up until it is an avalanche threatening to take over the hallway. Meanwhile, I go to work, I do my thing, I come home, and I stay in my room. I cook my own meals. I do my own laundry. I clean my own space. I am polite, but distant. Part of me feels guilty sometimes. I love my siblings. They did not ask for any of this. But I cannot keep sacrificing myself just to keep things running smoothly for everyone else. I need to have a life. I deserve to have a life. So am I the asshole? Update 1. My parents did not take the boundary I set very well. At first, it was just the passive-aggressive stuff, the cold shoulders, the loud sighs when they walked past me, the dramatically exaggerated stories they would tell each other within earshot about how exhausted they were, how hard it was to do everything themselves. I knew they were hoping I would cave, feel guilty, and fall right back into my old role. I did not. When the silent treatment and pointed conversations did not work, they escalated. I started finding notes left around the house. Not little reminders or chores lists like before, but notes full of guilt-tripping phrases like real families help each other, and a good brother steps up when needed. They would stick them to the bathroom mirror, the fridge, even inside the microwave so I would see it when I tried to reheat my food. It was honestly pathetic. I ignored every single one. I was done being manipulated. Not long after that, they sat me down for another family meeting. It was not really a meeting, it was them laying down ultimatums and trying to strong-arm me. They said that if I was not going to help out with the kids, the house, or anything else, then I would have to start paying them my entire paycheck to compensate them for my share of rent, utilities, and food. I sat there and listened to their whole self-righteous speech without interrupting. When they finally finished, I reminded them calmly that legally, they are obligated to take care of their minor children, that raising their own kids is not my responsibility, and that me being the oldest sibling does not make me a third parent or an unpaid employee. They did not take that well at all. The look on my dad's face when I said that was like I had slapped him across the mouth. His whole body tensed up. He told me it was my duty as a big brother to help. That family was about sacrifice and loyalty. I kept my voice even when I said that it was their duty as parents to actually parent their children, and that just because I was born first did not mean I was automatically enlisted into unpaid servitude. After that, the atmosphere at home shifted from tense to toxic. They stopped even pretending to be civil. It was little things at first. My laundry would mysteriously disappear after I left it in the washer. Food I bought with my own money would be eaten or thrown out. I would find my room rearranged or my stuff missing from where I left it. I started keeping anything valuable locked in a drawer, but even then, I never really felt like my space was mine anymore. Then they got even pettier. They started hiding my work clothes, literally taking my uniform from where I left it hanging and stashing it somewhere random in the house. The first time it happened, I tore my room apart looking for it, thinking maybe I had misplaced it somehow. It made me late for work and I got a warning from my manager. I found the shirt 2 days later crumpled up behind the washing machine. After that, I started keeping my uniform in my backpack and bringing it to work with me just to be safe. Another time, they forgot to pick me up from work. I had called and texted them like we had agreed before my shift even started, and they confirmed they would come. When I clocked out at 10 p.m. and stood outside waiting, no one showed up. I waited for almost an hour, called both their phones, and got no response. Eventually, I had to walk almost 3 miles home in the dark. When I finally stumbled in, exhausted and sore, they were sitting on the couch watching TV, acting like nothing happened. When I asked why they never came, they shrugged and said I should have figured it out myself if I was going to act like an adult. I realized then that they were doing it on purpose. At this point, every interaction with them feels like walking through a minefield. I cannot leave anything out without it disappearing or getting tampered with. I cannot rely on them for anything because they will use every opportunity to make my life harder. I am working as many hours as I can, saving every penny. I am planning to get a cheap used car as soon as I can afford it, because depending on them for rides is just another way they can control and punish me. The worst part is that my younger siblings are stuck in the middle of this mess. They do not understand what is happening. They still come to me when they need help or want to play or just want someone to talk to, and it breaks my heart to have to distance myself. But I know if I do not hold the line now, I will be trapped forever in the role they forced me into. I am not their third parent. I am their older brother. I love them, but I cannot keep setting myself on fire to keep everyone else warm. It is hard. It is lonely. It is exhausting. But every day I go to work, every paycheck I earn, every small step I take toward independence reminds me why I am doing this. I am fighting for the right to have my own life, to be my own person, not just an unpaid extension of my parents' choices. Right now, things are ugly at home. Every day feels like another round of emotional warfare. I know it will not get better unless I get out. I am determined to make that happen. Until then, I am just trying to survive the toxicity, keep my head down, and keep moving forward. I do not have a car yet. Update 2. Things at home kept getting worse after they started sabotaging my work stuff. Every day felt like a constant battle to protect my tiny corner of independence. I thought that was just the new normal, that they were angry and lashing out because they could not control me anymore. But it turns out there was a much bigger reason behind their desperation, and I only found out because they got careless. A few nights ago, after one of my late shifts, I came home exhausted. The house was weirdly quiet. I went straight to my room, but I was too wired from work to fall asleep right away. That is when I heard them. My parents were in the kitchen, arguing, not the petty bickering they had been doing lately, but a serious, heated argument. Their voices were low at first, but they kept getting louder and angrier until I could not help but overhear. I stayed still and listened, heart pounding. They were fighting about money. About bills that were piling up. About loans they had taken out years ago when we lived at a different place, loans they had never fully paid off. About missed payments. About foreclosure warnings. About how much longer they could hold things together before the bank came knocking for the house. I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, feeling a wave of shock wash over me. I had known things were tight, they always complained about money, but I had never realized it was this bad. Losing the house level bad. Total collapse bad. And then came the kicker. I heard my mom say that they had hoped that once I started working, they could use my paychecks to bridge the gap for a while. That if they could just get me to hand over half, or even all of it, they could maybe stay afloat long enough to figure something else out. My dad said that if I loved the family, I would be willing to do it without making it a big deal. They talked about me like I was a walking wallet. Not a person. Not their son. Just a solution. Hearing it laid out so plainly felt like a punch to the stomach. I stayed in my room, silent, waiting for them to go to bed. I could not sleep at all after that. I just lay there, staring into the dark, trying to sort through the mess of feelings twisting up inside me. On one hand, it made me feel bad. Really bad. I would not wish that kind of stress on anyone, especially not my parents, no matter how screwed up things had gotten. I could not imagine the fear they must feel thinking about losing the house, uprooting the kids, the shame of it. Part of me wanted to help. Part of me felt guilty for not knowing sooner, even though they had hidden it from me. But at the same time, I was furious. Furious that instead of coming to me honestly, sitting me down like an adult, and explaining the situation, they chose manipulation. Guilt-tripping. Sabotage. They had tried to weaponize my love for my family instead of trusting me enough to have a real conversation. They had treated me like a resource to be exploited, not like a person whose own future was on the line too. All those guilt trip notes. All those lectures about duty and family and sacrifice. None of it was about me growing up or pulling my weight. It was about them drowning and wanting to use me as a lifeboat, without ever asking if I was willing or able. The next morning, I went to work like normal, but the whole day my mind was spinning. I knew that just pretending everything was fine was not going to cut it anymore. I had to address it. I had to take control of my own life, while still trying to be fair, to be better than they had been. So when I got home that night, I asked them to sit down for a real talk. I kept it calm. I did not throw the fight I overheard in their faces. I did not accuse or yell. I just said I knew things were bad financially, and that I was willing to discuss what I could do to help, but under my terms, not theirs. I made it very clear, I was not handing over my entire paycheck. I was not sacrificing my entire future because of mistakes I did not make and debts I did not incur. I explained that I needed to save for a car, for eventual move-out costs, for my education if I ever decided to go back to school. I told them that I could consider contributing a small, reasonable amount toward the household each month, an amount that I set, not half my income, not all of it, and definitely not anything that would cripple my ability to move forward with my own life. I could see they were not thrilled. I could tell they had hoped I would cave completely. But they also saw that I was serious. That I was not the scared, compliant kid they could guilt into submission anymore. They grudgingly agreed to hear me out. We have not worked out the final numbers yet. Honestly, I am still cautious, still wary of being manipulated again. I know now that I cannot trust them completely with my best interests. But at least the truth is out. At least I know the real stakes now. I am trying to find that balance, helping where I can, without letting myself be drained dry. I want to be compassionate without being exploited. I want to be responsible without being shackled. I do not know what the future holds. I do not know if they will stay true to their word, or if this is just a temporary ceasefire before they start pushing again. I am keeping my guard up. I am focusing on saving as much as I can, getting a car, and building my escape plan piece by piece. It hurts, knowing that things got to this point. It hurts, seeing how little they respected me when it came down to survival. But I am also proud of myself, for standing my ground, for refusing to let guilt and manipulation rule my life anymore, for taking the first real steps toward freedom. For now, I am willing to help a little. On my terms. With clear boundaries. With a clear understanding of what I can reasonably contribute without sacrificing my own future. Update 3. It all eventually came to a head with a huge, messy family meeting. It was not something I planned or even really wanted, but the tension in the house had built up so thick you could practically taste it. Every interaction was heavy with resentment, every passing moment a standoff waiting to explode. It was clear something had to give before things got even worse. We gathered in the living room one evening. My younger siblings had been shooed off to their rooms, probably sensing the storm brewing. From the second it started, it was chaos. Voices were raised, accusations flew around the room like shrapnel, and tears were shed, mostly by my mom, who alternated between sobbing into her hands and angrily demanding to know why I was tearing the family apart. Through it all, I stayed as calm as I could. I kept my voice even when it felt like my heart was hammering against my ribs trying to get out. I explained my side, slowly and carefully, like speaking to people who had spent years deliberately misunderstanding me. I laid it all out, that I had spent my entire childhood stepping up whenever they needed me, acting as a second parent when I should have been allowed to just be a kid. That I missed out on sleepovers, on sports games, on summer breaks, on being carefree because I was too busy babysitting, cleaning, cooking, and managing the chaos of the household. That I understood the family had needed help sometimes, but it had never been a choice for me. It was an expectation, one that ate up years of my life without so much as a thank you. I told them flat out that now that I was an adult, I was no longer obligated to continue sacrificing myself. I explained that taking my entire paycheck would not help anyone in the long run, that it would just trap me here indefinitely, sinking deeper into a cycle I would never escape from, living paycheck to paycheck with no savings, no future, no chance at independence. I said that if they truly cared about me, about my success and my happiness, they would understand that I would not, be their financial safety net at the cost of my own life. It was not easy to say all of that. Every word felt like dragging a knife through old wounds, but once it was out, it was like I could finally breathe again. The room went silent for a long time after I finished talking. The air was thick, like a storm about to break. Then came the rebuttals, defensive, emotional, messy. My parents tried to make it about loyalty, about tradition, about duty. They accused me of being selfish, cold, abandoning the family when they needed me most. I listened to every accusation, not reacting, letting them spill their feelings like poison needing to be drained. Because under all their anger, all their accusations, I could finally see the fear. They were scared. Of losing the house, of losing control, of losing the system they had built that relied so heavily on me holding everything together without complaint. After a lot of shouting, crying, and going around in endless circles, we finally landed on a compromise. I agreed to contribute a small fixed amount monthly to help with groceries and utilities, an amount I decided, based on what I could comfortably afford without crippling my savings goals. It was not a lot, but it was something. Enough to show that I was willing to be fair, that I did not hate them, that I was not turning my back completely. However, I made it crystal clear that this payment came with conditions. I was not the third parent anymore. I was not the backup babysitter, the emergency chauffeur, the substitute chef, or the overnight nanny. I would help if I wanted to, if it fit into my schedule and my life, but not because I was guilt-tripped or bullied into it. If they needed consistent childcare, they would have to figure out real solutions, paid daycare, a nanny, something sustainable. I told them straight that I was saving to move out, that this arrangement was temporary, and once I was gone, they would have to adjust without me. No more leaning on me like a crutch. They were not thrilled. In fact, you could see it written all over their faces how much they hated it. But they accepted it, because they honestly had no other choice. They had pushed me too far, lost too much of my trust, and deep down, they knew they could not force me anymore. They could try, but it would only drive me away faster. Now, things at home are tense but manageable. It is not friendly. It is not warm. It feels like we are all walking carefully around invisible landmines, trying not to set each other off. But at least the rules are clear now. At least there is a line they know not to cross. I stick to my boundaries. I help when I want to, when I have the time and the energy, not because I am guilt into it or made to feel like a bad person if I do not. I pay my agreed amount toward the household costs, nothing more, and I keep saving aggressively. Every paycheck is a step closer to getting out, to having my own place, to finally breathing freely without the constant weight of other people's expectations on my shoulders. It is not perfect. It still hurts sometimes, realizing how conditional their treatment of me turned out to be. It stings knowing that love in this house often feels tied to what I can provide, not who I am. But it is better than it was. I am no longer being dragged under by their desperation. I am no longer sacrificing my future just to keep their broken system propped up. For the first time in my life, I am living by my own choices. And I am not going back. I help when I want to, not when I am guilt-tripped.